up ahead. Affirmative 612.
Welcome into the Wealthy Pilots Podcast. Ben George filling in for Mark this week, along with Scott Osborn, as always, airline advisor at Patriot Wealth Planners. Today, we're talking about 401k contribution strategies and why 400,000 is the magic number to plan around. Scott, we're going to dig into this a little bit more, but why is 400,000 kind of that number we're focused on today?
Yeah, there's a couple major or two major reasons why that $400,000 of income is kind of the key, I think, the key tipping point from where you want to change your contributions up. And it comes down to two things. I mean, one is if we look at that non-elective employer contribution, that NEC. So if I say NEC, that's what we're talking about, that automatic airline contribution to the 401k. For most of the airlines, other than Southwest, it's going to go to the pre-tax 401k. Southwest lets it go to the Roth. But, why 400,000? It really comes down to two reasons. One, if you're under $400,000 of income, if you look at most of these airlines are doing 14 to 18%, that 401k limit of $73,000 this year, $73,500, you're kind of hitting that when you're in that upper teens automatic contribution right around $400,000. So it's not exactly $400,000 for every single pilot, but it's right around there. Okay. And then the other aspect. So ultimately what we're saying is, hey, if I'm right around $400,000 of income and I'm at a major airline, I'm going to get very close to that airline filling up my 401k without me having to contribute at all. Okay. And if I'm under that income level, or if I have a lower match, then for me to max my 401k, I need to put in some employee contributions because the automatic NEC contribution is not going to fill up my 401k for the year. So that's kind of like the one trigger point. The second trigger point here is at $400,000 is when we move up tax brackets from the 24% up to the 35%. And so, when we look at tax rates historically, if you're in the 20s, that's like not necessarily historic lows, but it's near historic lows. And so, that should drive us to think a little bit more strategically on what, again, start with the end in mind. When I retire, I'm going to be at a certain tax rate. We don't know what that is because, for some of these younger guys specifically, they got 15, 20 years left to fly. Who knows what's going to happen with tax rates. But ultimately, if we say, hey, if I'm at 24% or below, I can probably acknowledge that I'm in near historic lows, and it's probably quite unlikely I'm going to be at a lower than 24% tax bracket in retirement. When you consider, Social Security, any pensions that you might have from either your airline or from the military or anything else, and then distributions from your pre-tax 401k. And again, most of the airlines, the contribution is going to that pre-tax bucket. And so regardless of what you do with your contribution, most of these guys are going to end up with a very sizable pre-tax 401k. And so the distributions from that are going to naturally drive your tax, your taxable income up, which is going to lead you to probably be in the mid 20% tax bracket if you look at it. So, okay. So all that to say, those are like the two major things that we want to consider. Again, when I'm under 400,000, then, okay, what do I do? What should I do? Okay. Well, first off, we need to run a little bit of numbers because again, maybe your base pay is under 400,000, but if you're somebody who's flying a lot, picking up a lot of extra overtime or whatever the case is, if you're still going to end up over $400,000 of taxable income, then that NEC contribution can still push you over. And so when I think about this discussion, like one of the major goals that we're trying to accomplish and problems we're trying to solve is not getting to a point where we're overfilling the 401k and there's an excess contribution that needs to go somewhere. And then it goes over into what a lot of the airlines have now with this market-based cash balance plan. Market-based cash balance plan is just kind of like a spillover 401k account, but you do not get to choose the investments in that account. So the airline and their, fiduciary, quote unquote, fiduciary money manager is doing the management of that account. Well, at one of the airlines, I know they've had that account for 3 years here and it's averaged about 4.5%. when the market has been averaging about 5 times that. And so, I mean, the opportunity cost of the assets that are going in there is large. They're grossly underperforming just about every single asset class. So, most of the guys that we're working with, we have a goal like, hey, let's limit how much is going into the market-based cash balance plan. Or like United's got a retirement health savings account, the RHA. So, hey, if we want to limit how much is going into these, kind of tertiary tax deferred plans. Well, how do we do that? Well, we got to look at how much is going to get put into the 401k from the airline, which again is going to be 14 to 18% of my pay. And so as my income goes up, that number is going to go up too. And so if we view it, the contributions as stacking, like for me, I can put 23,500 in. I put mine 23.5 in, and then the airline's putting theirs in. Well, if I'm going to spill over anyways, well, that money is going to go, I'm going to end up putting more money into that market-based cash balance plan. And so for our folks that are over that $400,000 of income, many times we recommend, hey, let's pull yours out. Let's not make a contribution to the 401k this year and let the company max it out. Especially if you look at some of the profit sharing payouts and stuff for some of the airlines, those 401ks can get maxed out, by the spring, by this time of year. Some of them are already maxed. And so, we want to be conscious of how much we're putting in of the employee contribution, because again, it stacks on top and it's going to spill more over into the market-based cash balance plan. So what we'd rather see is you have a little bit less tax deferral and more of that money is going to come to you throughout the year, and you can deploy that to kind of take care of what we talked about in the last episode, some of those other accounts, those backdoor Roth IRAs for you and your spouse, and then that individual or joint brokerage account that we can start to put excess money into. And again, if we look at it compared to, hey, I can either pay a higher income tax rate on it now, and then I get those assets, or I can tax defer it. And I'm not necessarily saving taxes, I'm just deferring them, which is important. And I can send it over in the market-based cash balance plan. Hypothetically, Ben, if I paid 35% income tax on it now, and I'm going to pay 24% on it in retirement, hypothetically, that tax savings is not insignificant. But what I'm saying is, if I can invest it and get returns more in line with some of the broader equity markets around 10, 11% for a long time compared to the 4% is getting in the cash balance plan, those assets are going to significantly be better on my side in my accounts than they are in that cash balance account. Okay.
Right.
And so that's where I think, when you get to that $400,000 number, it gets a lot more important to really assess your contribution strategy. You're also kind of getting to the point where you got enough income where typically the guys have a little bit of excess that we can fund, that taxable account, those backdoor Roth IRAs. But I mean, that's really, to me, that tipping point, because again, if I'm under 400,000, I'm not dealing with worrying about spillover so much, but to me, the discussion gets to be more around the tax discussion. And so what I would tell most of my guys that are under 400,000 is, hey, I want you to put your contribution in, but I want it to go to the Roth, because you're going to get the pre-tax non-elective contribution regardless. You don't have a vote in that. You're going to get that regardless. But if we can be getting it for our guys that are younger in their career, if you can be pumping in 23,500 into the Roth 401k every year, again, and still not get spillover into market base, that's going to be significant amount. That's going to be a significant amount of Roth money that you have young in your career, that even if we end up turning those Roth contributions off later, which I would recommend when you get over into these higher buckets, even if we turn that off, that's still typically going to be a very sizable Roth 401k that's going to grow to be tax-free money for you in retirement. So for our younger folks, we definitely want to have a discussion around contribution strategy, because it is a huge difference in terms of where you're landing in retirement 30 years later, potentially in your career. So that's one key aspect for the folks under 400,000. Really, let's look and consider, should we move my 23.5 over into Roth, where now I'm saving in a diversified way? Yes, it means I'm going to have a little bit higher taxable income that year because I'm not deferring it anymore. But again, if I'm under $400,000 of income, I'm already going to be in close to the lowest tax bracket that I'm going to be in the rest of my life. So we might as well put it in to the Roth and then let it grow tax-free forever there.
Yeah, that can have such a huge impact. Give you a lot more flexibility down the road as well, too. So again, if you're under 400K, that is a key consideration to be making here. So as we talk this contribution strategy, let's move to if you are over that 400K number that you've been talking about, how do things change?
Yeah, and so if I'm over the 400, that's just kind of recapping it. That's where I would say we really want to look at potentially turning our contributions off. And when I turn my contributions off, I'm letting the airline fill up that pre-tax bucket. Because again, if I make mine in Roth, I'm paying higher taxes on that money. But I'm still adding to that base of 401k contribution. So I'm going to increase the amount of money going over into the cash balance plan, where it's just known to have poor performance. And so we know if we don't defer more, we're going to end up taking a little bit of a tax hit now, but we're looking to make that up through investment performance over the long run, which statistically has not been super hard to do based off of the performance of those cash balance plans. And then the last component of this is really for those that are over 50 years old is from a contribution strategy standpoint is like, hey, do I do the catch-up contribution or not? Because again, I got 73.5 in there now, and then I can do, based off of if I'm 50 to 62 or 60 to 63, there's different contribution rules for catch-up. It's a little nuanced, but at the end of the day, I can put in an extra roughly $11,250 into this 401k account. But it's important for people to know, like I got to log in and I have to do two things. One, I got to run the numbers and figure out, roughly what percent it's going to take for me to do that catch-up contribution. For two, I got to make sure that I not just do the catch-up contribution, but it's going to the Roth. Schwab and Fidelity had to make some updates this year because of the Secure Act that kind of dictated that, hey, these catch-up contributions for 50 and over have to go to Roth now. So I know there's been some system updates to help that, but it's on the pilot to make sure that they set that portion up, that their catch-up contribution is going in. Because again, that NEC contribution is going to fill up and then just go to the market-based cash balance plan. Even if there was catch-up contribution that could be done, it's not going to flow over to do that. And so that's got to come from the pilot. So we definitely recommend doing that just to get more money in there. I mean, it's like doing a backdoor Roth kind of inside of the 401k. And so again, that's like the third element for the over 50s. They got to make sure that they take care of that, and we highly recommend it. And one thing I'll say, kind of about 401k in general, a lot of our guys do this and I highly recommend it. Try to front load as much of this as possible into the 401k every year. Again, 80% of the time, the market is positive year to year. And so, the foundation of this, I would kind of say is like, hey, cash is king. So if I have some excess cash that I can live off for a couple months, I mean, you can fly for 2 months and max this thing out for the year, max my, catch-up contribution, max my employee contribution, and then get the NEC going in there, and then profit sharing, and then, first quarter I'm done. And so, if you can manage your cash flow in a way that you can front load getting as much into it as you can control, I highly recommend that because it enables you to A, have a little bit more on the paycheck the rest of the year, which is nice. And then B, have that money be in the market more time than not. And again, if we do that every year over our career, statistically, it's going to increase our investment performance because there's more time that the money's in the market. So at the end of the day, if you peanut butter spread it and just dollar cost average it over the entire year, that's not a major sticking point, but that to me is kind of a little bonus point. If you can front load it, the data supports you that you're going to get better performance over time. So just because it's in the market longer.
Good stuff. I mean, if you aren't having these discussions about your contribution strategies already, now is the time to be doing so. Again, retireairlines.com is the website. But again, this is something you want to be doing as early as possible too, right, Scott? It just has such a huge impact as it compounds over time.
Yeah, I mean, and especially for the younger guys, I think, man, if you're under that 400,000 mark, we really want to take a look at building some tax-free wealth. And then for the guys that are over 400,000, it really can impact the investment performance of the total portfolio if we set things up correctly. And so you want to, not just look at one sub account and see how you're doing. We want to set up the whole household to make sure that we're driving things at the right, right level, right investment selections, and all that across the board. So absolutely. The earlier you get started, the longer this tailwind's going to help you.
Yeah, hopefully this discussion will give you some things to be talking about with someone that you're working with. If you're not working with someone, again, reach out to Scott, have those conversations. You can also request the Wealthy Pilot Toolkit as well. Some valuable information and tools in there as well. So again, appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed this video, if you learned something from this video, please subscribe. We'd appreciate that support. We'll have more conversations about investment strategies for pilots coming up. So look forward to talking to you again then.
All right. See you soon.
Hey everyone, real quick, if you haven't grabbed Scott's Financial Flight Control Toolkit yet, now is the time. This is packed with tons of helpful resources and tools like this, Scott's book, The Dichotomy of Wealth, which is a pilot's guide to maximizing wealth and cash flow in retirement. You also get access to some great guides like this one, Advice Matters, which breaks down 4 key ways a good financial advisor can help you boost your returns over time. And guides like this one on the pitfalls of emotions when it comes to investing, and this one on the HCM byline investment strategy, and more. So if you'd like your very own Financial Flight Control Toolkit, just click the link in today's show description, and Scott and the team will be happy to get one sent your way at absolutely no cost to you.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.